This meeting
Now
is being
this is
recorded.
okay. All right.
Okay, sorry.
Now it's being recorded. Now we're here live. Okay. So I am going to open this up so I can see people if they have questions. And then we'll get started. So Libby, give us a little, you've been on with me before, but it's been a little bit. So I'd love to have me shut up for a minute and actually have you introduce yourself and kind of say a little bit about who you are, who you serve, why you're here, and the best hairband ever.
Okay, well, I'll start with the best hairband ever.
All right, let's
Van
have it.
Halen.
Van
Van
Halen.
Halen, best hairband ever. Love them
Van
so much.
Halen or Van Hagar?
Both.
Okay, so you like both.
I have a big love for both.
Mhm.
Yeah. So when Eddie Van Halen died, I was pretty sad.
That was
But
rough, I will admit. Mhm.
that was rough.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
they're my favorite band. Okay, so we'd start with something
There you go.
light.
There we go. Yeah, right.
So you brought up we haven't talked in a while,
We haven't.
and one of the reasons is because I have been so incredibly busy. We are truly in the middle of a mental health crisis, um, especially with our younger population. I see clients, I see little ones like from 6 years old, to people into their 60s, right? So I have a plethora, and when I say younger clientele that are struggling the most, it tends to be my high school to young adults are really struggling. I have a bulk of them. Um, Lots of those developmental years,
Mhm.
those developing brains, all this trauma and all this change and all this pivoting, and today we're wearing a mask, and are we safe? And yeah, it's just been a lot. So I'm really busy with that age group, and it's funny. I in diagnosing, I attended a whole seminar on diagnosing during this pandemic because it's gotten pretty complicated, right? So I surprise clients all the time by letting them know that they actually are meeting the criteria for PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome, um, because of the culture and the world we're living in right now. That's probably where I spend the majority of my time
Mhm.
on those clients.
So yeah, so thank you for sharing that. What are you seeing from a layman's perspective, right?
Okay.
If somebody's
Yeah.
saying, okay, so you are diagnosing these folks with PTSD, kind of a collective because of the effects and because of the perspective from this pandemic.
Okay.
What are you seeing from these
I'm
young ones? Because I think that's really, really interesting to talk about that particular generation, that this is kind of their life for the last couple of years.
Right. Okay. So they come in with like anxiety symptoms
Mhm.
typically, or
Mhm.
severe depression. So we've got these kids that we've raised that their brains are constantly been stimulated since they were little, since they had an iPad in their hands. These are kids that are completely connected through video games to other people. That's how they get their social connection, a lot of them. Um, just they're looking to be seen on social media. This generation, right? Am I being noticed? Am I being seen? And then we throw them out. Like right now, like I'm really busy with 19-year-olds. These kiddos go off to college, and it's just everything is just so much harder, right? They're in this no man's land. Am I a grown up? Am I a kid? What do I do with myself when I'm quiet? Like the hardest time for these kids and these young adults is boredom, stillness,
Mhm.
right? They don't know what to do with that. And underlying all of this is and they don't even realize it. It's about safety.
Mhm.
They don't feel safe,
Mhm.
right? And you start to not
Mhm.
even feel safe in your own body when you are in hyperarousal from PTSD.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and a lot of them then just pull the covers over their head and then sink into a depression. So
Mhm.
they'll have some depressive symptoms. So all that makes sense. Was that more
It does.
layman's?
It does. Yeah. Thank you. I
I
think
went to a long explanation.
no, it's fantastic, and I love the way that you present that because I want our audience to to see what that means, like how you touch and taste and feel it. It's like when somebody says any type of diagnoses, right? It's PTSD, it's all these acronyms, right? But I really
Right?
want everyone to,
Explicitly,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, to really put it into terms. And I loved even you put the covers over your head, which is nothing new, right? To folks who are struggling with anxiety and stress and that type of thing. They want to do
Right,
this and eat Ben and Jerry's ice cream or take a drink or, have whatever. So I'm
right.
curious because I heard this, because I've witnessed this somewhat in my own life with my kids and others. When I hear the word boredom and silence and
Mhm,
stillness,
mhm.
and I think this is, and it may be a little bit off our topic, but I think it's really important because we work with clients all the time on this idea of, and it was a powerful song several years ago, and you may be familiar with this because we love music. We always talk music, right, Libby? It was a song by Pink called "Sober," and in the
Okay,
line, what's that?
you have to sing it for me.
That's not going to happen. We don't want to attract all the dogs. Uh,
Okay.
I sing really well in the shower. I'll just say that, like a lot of us do. But there's a line in Pink's song that says, "It's in the silence that is the most terrifying," something like that, right? We're
Yeah,
scared of the silence because of what it doesn't bring. And I'm always interested because we work with our clients in this space to say we want to bring them to a level of quiet. We want to have them spend time in meditative states. We want them to get away and get outside and to be silent with themselves because of all the noise that's out there, all of the news and the bad stuff, and then this and this and this and this. And
well,
so I'm
here's
curious. Go
our
ahead.
question.
Go
Here's the
ahead.
million-dollar question
Okay.
that comes from therapy. What is your anxiety protecting you from? What do you think it's
Mm-hmm.
protecting
Mm-hmm.
you, right?
Yep. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's the staying busy, right?
Mhm.
The constant noise, the constant, I'm on my phone. It's part of who I am. I'm constantly looking for affirmation, loves, likes, comments, and shares. I'm constantly looking to be the next influencer. I'm constantly looking for response that says I'm important, right? Which
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a whole nother, I mean, that's what we're talking. What'd you
right?
say?
And, like, I'm enough, right? Like, am I
Exactly.
enough?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when we have to get silent or when we do get silent, when we get comfortable in it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
oh gosh, comfortable might not be the right word, but just when we get silent, maybe then we have to face that we don't really love our spouse.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't who I want to be with.
Exactly.
Or my job sucks. I
Mm-hmm.
need to find a job,
Yep. Exactly.
you know? Or I'm
Mm-hmm.
just not living the life I want to live. Now that's,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, we can all can connect to those feelings, right? Like, and one of the things that has happened with this COVID like pause that we've had or this change,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people there's some people that have had like a big spiritual awakening,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they have shifted and changed their life. I've definitely seen that with people. Some of the people that end up in my office they just don't, they want to feel supported making those shifts and those changes, right? Like, when I say like spiritual, what do you think that means?
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Are
think
you asking
spiritual
me?
means? I'm
Are you
asking
asking
you.
me?
What
Yeah.
is spiritual
Yeah.
to you?
For me, it's an awakening to understand who you are on more of a metaphysical, not concrete space. To say, there's more to me. There's more to life than just this thing, right? There's something beyond
Well,
understanding at times. Yeah.
I love the way you said that. That's
Mm-hmm.
because to me, and I end up doing a lot of spiritual work with people because anxiety to me is really kind of a spiritual problem. And I don't mean religion. I'm loving your definition, but connection to self, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
when we get still, we kind of force the connection, right? It's there. Oh shit, I got to listen to my head. I got to listen to my heart,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we keep busy, 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 busy all the time,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to really listen.
Nope.
It's a lot of work to change your life. It's a lot of work to break up with your girlfriend if this is not the right one, right?
It's a
So
lot of work to change jobs. It's a lot of work to admit and confess that life is not what you thought it was going to be. We work with a lot of our clients through a grieving and mourning process to understand that it's okay to make a decision that's going to end or complete a relationship, whether it's career, whether it's husband, wife, divorce, boyfriend, girlfriend, moving, job relocation, whatever it is, it's okay to be in this space of, I miss it. I really feel pain and sadness for making this decision, and it's the right decision.
Right. And sometimes when we, well, no, often when we get connected to self,
Mm-hmm.
we end up losing some friendships. Things change. Not everybody can accept the healthy version of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be really scary, right?
Really scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have a certain grounding, you have a certain home, right? You've had friends for 20 years, 25 years, 30, or your whole life, right? Or maybe a particular friend was associated with a particular lifestyle or a season of life, and you
Yeah,
no longer
absolutely.
participate in that particular whatever it is. It may be drinking, it may be drugs, it may be soccer teams of your kids, it may be whatever it may be, right? As I like to say, and we say to our clients all the time, not everybody is ready to move with you,
That's right.
and that's
That's right.
okay.
And that's
It's
hard.
hard.
That's
It's so
really
hard. I
hard,
know. It's
right?
so
Because
hard.
then we have the whole FOMO thing, I didn't get invited to that or whatever. Yeah. No, that's a whole other thing. But
That is a
yeah, but
whole other
that's
thing.
something our kids
Mhm.
definitely face, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, another thing I think to bring up that's really important that I really think has affected just besides this COVID, this kind of like safety thing, I think that kind of piggybacks off this really is just our culture right now is really an us or them. It's not a
Mm,
collective we, it's a more, divisive us versus them. Um, and like this, the variant, the Omicron variant's kind of slowing down. Maybe things are getting a little bit smoother. And then we've got this Russian thing going on, which to me, and David, we could connect to this, and some of our listeners that are close to our age, we remember the Cold War. we remember,
right.
I remember in seventh grade watching What to Do If a Nuclear Bomb Came. We'd go in
Hmm.
the basement. Do you remember this, David?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, these videos were made from the 50s, I think, but they were like ones we were still watching back in the 80s.
Hmm.
And I'm like, gosh, this is kind of triggering this old Cold War
Hmm.
Russian threat of nuclear. I'm like, that's not helpful for me,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm
Right.
having an effect from it.
Hmm.
So, and it's again, it's America versus Russia. It's liberal versus conservative.
Hmm.
It's so much,
Yeah.
right? No
Pro
matter
war versus anti war. Do we get involved? Do we not get involved? What do we do to support the Ukrainian people? What do we do to reject the Russian people, which is not,
and
the
those
people,
Russian people,
the Russian people are like, we don't even know what's going on. What do you mean? So,
right,
and
right.
we faced that when we were kids, when we were talking about the Soviet Union, right?
Yeah,
And
I
how,
remember the
and
feeling.
yeah, yeah. And it's so this continued addition to conflict that is so collective, that is so broad and vast.
Mhm.
And again, I think, we do what we do to provide the support and love, right? And response and receptivity and validation for them and how they're receiving that, right?
Yeah.
How are you receiving, and what are you allowing to come into your presence to
Yes.
say, okay, do I need to? And this is a great question. We're constantly with our clients asking them to ask the question, why? Why are you watching news 24 hours a day? Well, because I want to stay in. I mean, we want them to really dig in and say, how is this affecting you? Well, I want to be informed. Tell me more. To really, but to be from a curious standpoint, to understand we have absolute autonomy to understand what we're allowing to come into our presence and consciousness. And so much of that is determining our level of mental health.
Right. I think I've said this phrase every time you and I have talked, but here's the phrase. You've got to be careful what you pay attention to because what you pay attention to expands, right? And I'm going to give the example of my mother, and I'm sure my mom will watch this later. My mom is
Hi,
the
Mom.
sweetest woman. She's amazing. She's so smart. She watches news all day long. She's retired, and
Sure.
she really cares about the world. And,
Sure.
and I think this is very common for my mom's in retirement. She's got a little bit more time to really pay attention what's going on. And I'll have a pretty good day and I'll give her a call. And by the end of the phone call. I'm like, shit, mom, I was fine until I called you. And my poor mom
Hmm.
is just trying to make sure I know what's going on. But I'm like, mom,
Hmm.
it's okay. I don't want to know. Right.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I'll wrap my brain around this later.
Hmm.
Um, you know what I mean? But I can
I
tell that
do.
my mom is what I'm like, how many hours did you watch, mom?
Hmm. Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
And I love that you brought that up because it is, we are consistently coaching and leading, supporting our clients to understand that what you receive, the input that you receive, you become that. The law of attraction is absolutely real. So, and
yeah,
this is what becomes more divisive. And then we see this on social media all the time. It's me versus them. And if I put something on social media that is in support of going to war or in support of masks or in support of this, I only want the feedback that I agree with, that's going to
right.
make me feel important and validated and supported. Meanwhile, the people on the other side of the aisle, right, are less than what I want to spend time with. But we never ask the question, hey, and we teach this concept with our clients all the time. Help me understand why you think that. Tell me
Right.
more, right?
Or
If
tell
we
me
engaged in
I
those,
know
yeah.
what I know, but tell me what you know,
And I'm
right?
really genuinely interested in what you have to bring to the world. If we engaged on like that on social media, imagine, and I said this to a client the other day, Libby. I said our goals, Paige and I's goal, certainly with what we're doing in our coaching space, is, and it's a lofty one, and we are not alone in this because we have some incredible impact influencers and thought leaders around the world who are doing this too. But we really want to eradicate emotional trauma in our lifetime. That's what we want to do. Imagine if that could be a possibility, that we would not be talking about the Ukrainian people. Because the fact of the matter is, the reason why this is happening, and let's just talk about that for a second, is because somebody wants something that doesn't belong to them.
Right. Right.
That's a trauma response. That is a scarcity mentality from a global standpoint. From a national standpoint, one country thinks they deserve something else, right? And we've seen it since the dawn of time when we have conflict. I mean, that's just the way that is. But it's trauma. It is trauma on a global or a national scale, which is
Right.
what we're seeing with the pandemic in so many ways. Internationally, we are experiencing this collective trauma, this PTSD, that says, oh my gosh, what are we going to do about this? Which is always the perfect question to be asking, right?
Well, the conflict in Russia, just the world's responding. The world is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely responding. I think we've all kind of had enough, right? We've been bullied by a virus for,
I love
the
that.
past
We have had
years.
enough. Got it. Move on.
I love that people collectively as a world are kind of coming together. And I remember after 9/11
Mm-hmm.
feeling very together with
Mm-hmm.
people nationally, are
Mm-hmm.
you and really globally people were very supportive. But
Right.
I do remember the time after that. It was an awful time, a scary time, but at the same time, I oh gosh, I remember like all these musicians coming out with songs
Mm-hmm.
and these
Mm-hmm.
various musicians like coming together, singing songs and people really feeling like
Mm-hmm.
just together.
Yep.
And I would have thought this virus would have done that, and it really hasn't, and it's just kind of pulled us a little bit farther apart.
Yeah. And thank you for bringing that up because I think this is something, and the reason why we have conversations, the reason why I want certainly the watchers of this and the listeners of this conversation, Libby, is to consistently ask questions. Why? I've repeated this earlier today. Is why do you believe what you believe? Why do you be, are you on this side? Why do you
Mm,
think this? Why? I want folks to consistently ask that question for themselves because the reality is when things like this happen, we can choose to have it divide us, or we can choose to bring it together, much like 9/11. What was powerful, for example, about the Cold War, and even more specifically, now we're getting into history, nerd right here, just
I love
FYI, right? The power of and the decisiveness about World War II was there was an absolute good guy and there was an absolute bad guy. Now,
yeah.
whether or not politically that was all correct, okay, the fact that, I mean, because we've all done bad shit. Let's just be honest, right? The United States is not the perfect
Oh, but
nation.
Hitler was really
Newsflash,
bad.
friends, right?
He might have been
So,
the devil
yeah, well, perhaps. But again, how much trauma did Adolf Hitler face as a child? We know that, right? We can get into that all day long.
English
But
song, they say only, never mind. It's
yeah,
not
it's
appropriate.
a whole nother, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But the point is, when we, in that particular scenario, we were brought together, much like 9/11. It's us against them. Now, with what we've seen so much with the pandemic, it's the us and them within us.
Yeah.
And that's what's bringing so much strife and more trauma to the situation, as opposed to saying, hey, let's look at this phenomenon, which is a virus. Let's simply just address that. Whether what we believe about it, whatever it's done, and to, all the, and all the blessings and support to how it's affected people. But instead of saying, well, this is what I believe, and turning it into a political conversation, right, is to say, this is affecting us. And let's pause there and understand why it's affecting us.
Yeah.
And again, having those conversations.
I think I see this in clients a lot.
Mm.
Just a lot of judgment for
Mm.
others, right? So lots of, and I see people that have from all walks of life, right? And as a therapist, when you walk in my room, you get unconditional positive regard. Whatever your story
Safe.
is,
Mm-hmm.
whatever your story is, we all have a story. We all have life experience. We all have different biology, things that just make up our story and who we are and why we feel or believe the way we do, right? So as a therapist, I'm totally open to people's stories. What I do notice is that sometimes people can get very rallied behind an important cause, maybe disenfranchised people, or just a cause that speaks to their heart. And I love that. I love it when people want to help, right? They want to be helpers. But at the same time, civility um, and kindness seem to be lacking.
Mm.
So they don't match up. I'm like, these amazing, beautiful things you want to do to help people. But for the people that are standing right in front of you, you're not very kind to.
Mm.
So spiritually, I kind of challenge people on that a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
just,
Mm-hmm.
does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. Yeah, it's
Okay,
beautiful.
right?
Yeah,
Right,
that's
right.
beautiful.
And
I think.
that
Yeah,
is
go
the
ahead.
plethora of, and then what I find out is I've got people on the far left, people on the far right, people in the middle somewhere. They're all the same. We're all the same.
Go figure, right?
Same.
Go figure. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's really important, and as a message, certainly coming from us here on this conversation, Libby, is passion and purpose for a cause, whatever that may be, right, is so admirable. Oh my gosh, please go and do that. Please go and save the world. Please go and stand up for someone's voice, perhaps that can't be heard.
Right.
And let's do it in a way, right, that is built on curiosity and not criticism. That we automatically assume, right, that somebody is against us simply because we have a cause, right? And we're
Right.
looking adversarially first, like, how can I fight this? As opposed to, what can I do to bring awareness to this? And to have a dialogue very much similar to what we were talking about earlier is, you don't agree with me. Great. I'm open to what you have to say. Let's simply have a dialogue.
So what's happening right now, this hyperarousal, right? So
Mhm.
like if this is our brain, like say this is the front of our brain. This is the front of our brain. This back part is our brainstem or our limbic
Mhm.
system where we're stuck in hyperarousal,
Yep.
safety is an issue. We're kind of stuck back here.
Yep.
And so to keep ourselves safe, our brains are constantly monitoring, right? So they go negative first. It makes sense. We're all in a state of hyperarousal. We really are. Um, so it's a muscle that we have to build up. This kind of love
Mhm.
muscle, what I
Mhm.
call it, right? So we have
Mhm.
to really lean into love. And we all go into a snap judgment. We all do. It quickly, right? So what I challenge people to do is like, okay, let it go, let it flow and choose again. Just
Mhm.
choose again in that next moment.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I that probably wasn't the greatest thought I just
Mhm.
had. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Let
I
me back
love
up.
that. I love that, Libby, when you said, and I want to emphasize that. So if you're listening, write that down. Brilliant. Choose again.
Yeah.
Not to go into a level of shame, which says,
Right.
oh,
So
I
I'm not
screwed
even just
up, or I'm not good
the other
enough, or
judging yourself too, right?
right,
We have
right.
judgment about our judgment. So that's
Oh, that's yeah.
exhausting.
And that's really, yeah, that's really the heart, right? Hurt people hurt people. So people
Yeah,
who are judging first, they're judging themselves. And so they're
right.
comparing to and looking into the mirror. That's a lot of what we work with.
But choose
Um,
again.
choose again. I love that. Choose again. I'm going to look at, I just want to acknowledge people that are here. Andrew is here. Nikki is here. Samantha is here. Kevin is here. Jerry is here. Stacy is here. I hope you're still here, guys. Um, if you have any questions or anything, we're going to kind of wrap this up because, well, Libby, you know this. You and I could just talk forever and
Uh-huh.
ever and ever and ever and ever. So here's what I want to give. I want to give our audience some takeaways.
Okay.
Certainly from, you and I are professionals in that we are helping provide the support, right? And the grounding and the validation and the inspiration, motivation to move forward, certainly. And that is, obviously we want folks to, if they feel called and feel charged and motivated to seek professional help, working with us. Outside of that, what can you share with our audience? Like, what are some things to consider? You've shared some of these, like, oh, be careful of what you allow in. So if there's some things that the audience can really, our listeners can really take in and say, this is what we can do to help be a bit more healthy as we receive what's going on around the world.
Okay. Let me tell you something I do with my clients that I think
Please.
is such a gift. And this is not anything I thought of on my own. I got this from Gabrielle Bernstein. She's I'm definitely a student of hers. She's a spiritual coach, teacher. Um, she has a new book called Happy Days, which is great. And it's really referring about how to kind of recalibrate during this hard time. It's really great. But one of the things that I learned from her years ago that I do with my clients is called Rage on the Page. And I think it is a super, super helpful way to just sort of when your mind is spinning, spinning, spinning. And I have clients come in here all the time that just, their mind, just the same perseverating thought over and over again, right? So what Rage on the Page is basically just a mind dump. It's a purge of these constant streaming thoughts that sometimes we can't sleep, we can't get to what we need to, and we're just getting in the way. And I think during these moments of stillness that we are, boredom that we get uncomfortable in, this is a great thing to do. So um, I always play bilateral music with it. Bilateral music, it's a music that stimulates both the left and right side of your brain. I don't exactly know the science behind it. I just know that it's a really useful tool when you're trying to just get reflective, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
study. It just I don't know. Somebody
Beautiful.
else there probably knows more. But
Yeah.
anyways, I have my a lot of my kids that I have. I'm like, study to this, and they're like, this is amazing. I'm like, I know. It's all, very zen like music. But
Sure.
anyway, what I have my clients do is like, let's play bilateral music for a good 15 minutes. Let's go for 20. Let's see how you're doing. And you just write down. It's not journaling. Journaling can be kind of exhausting for people. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm literally talking about writing down, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to eat tacos for dinner. I hate that lady I work with. I'm going to
Yep.
wear my blue shirt tomorrow with my red earrings. I mean, just it's literally just a mind dump.
Love
Just
it.
whatever is just streaming, right? And what I'll do is I'll have clients, I'll say, like, they'll kind of look at me like, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm like, okay, well, let's just do it for 10 minutes. Let's see how it goes. I will come in front to page, the page, both sides, front to back, covered. And they're like, can I have 10 more minutes? I'm like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and once we're done, just processing with them how light they feel,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Just feeling light. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing, I love Rage on the Page. It works for me. I do it personally.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend it. The other thing is really do watch what you're paying attention to. I think that's one of the biggest messages we got out there today. I remember self-disclosure here during COVID, like the early part, I was really stressed out and I would literally get a bottle of wine
Mm-hmm.
and get a wine glass and
Yep.
just be like, okay, and watch Lester Holt. I'd be like, what's happening, Lester Holt? And
Mm-hmm.
not the healthiest coping. That is not what I recommend. I had
Right.
to stop watching the news and
Mm-hmm.
stop drinking so much wine.
Yep.
I know I'm not alone on this, but so, just, protecting your heart. You need to
Absolutely.
be informed about some things, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to have it inundate your life like my sweet mother.
Yeah. God
Who
bless her. We
doesn't?
love you, Mom. We love you, Mom. Yeah, I fully support all that. I love it. Rage on a page.
Right.
It is a brain dump. It is whatever. It is a unconscious, conscious mind dump of whatever is coming through. Right. And we teach this in our practice as well, we would call that journaling. We would call that journaling in some ways, where there's not necessarily a focus or you have a journal prompt, but it's simply dumping out the emotions that are coming, because so many of us, if not all of us, are not taught how to do that.
Right.
Like,
Well,
how do I
when your
express it?
stomach hurts, David, your stomach hurts and you're like, I don't want to throw up, but I want to throw up. And then you throw up
Yep,
and you feel so much better. It's a
exactly,
lot like that. It
exactly,
really is.
exactly.
I don't
Love
want
it.
to be the
Rage
one
on a
that
page.
my thoughts, that you do
Mhm.
and you're
Yeah, and I love the input, and we've talked about this throughout this conversation, is be very, very conscious of what you're allowing into your space. Far too often we simply say, well, that's just because I'm supposed to do that because those around me are doing it. And we talk about this all the time in our coaching, is you are the average of the 5 people closest to you. So if they're engaged in watching news all the time and they're taking all of this ingestion in, well, of course you're going to feel like you need to do this as well. I would invite, and this is what I feel like you're saying, echo the idea that let's have some pattern interrupt. Let's try something different. If you're watching the news 5 hours a day or 1 hour a day, cut it in half. Right? It's not that you want to be ignorant, but it's really about, is this serving me? How is this serving me in a really positive way? Right? So, well, I think that feels complete for now. Our conversation never ends, right? So,
yeah.
thank you so much, Libby. Thank you for
Oh
your
my gosh.
time.
Thank you.
Love having you here. Say a little bit about kind of what you do, where you are, how to get a hold of you. If somebody is interested in knowing more about what you do and how you serve your clients, this is your time to plug,
Yeah.
my friend.
Oh, thank you so much. So, I am a psychotherapist. I'm a licensed professional counselor out of Kansas City. I do life coaching. I really love doing spiritual life coaching. So, if you're out of state, you can find me at LibbyRooneyCounseling.com. Of course, David is an amazing life coach, but if you want to get all zen with me, definitely get a hold of me. But locally here in the Kansas City area, I can serve you in person.
Awesome. Awesome. What's the website again?
LibbyRooneyCounseling.com.
There you go. You have
The
all you
other
need.
thing
Yeah,
I
please.
want to say about you and I both,
Hmm.
we, you and I both work in internal family systems
Yeah.
therapy. It's
Mm-hmm.
something I'm being trained on right now as
Mm-hmm.
to be an informed therapist. And I know it's something you work in.
Yep.
It's definitely, if you're looking for a IFS therapist, I'm your gal. I love it. And we can talk about that another time, but it's
Yeah.
amazing.
It is amazing. It is amazing. Yes. And if you're working with us right now, so current clients, that we deep into that, into the healing process of how we get, as we like to say in our practice, Libby, we help people get unstuck.
Yeah,
It's pretty
get
much, that's
unstuck.
what it is. Right. So,
And
and
I
that
always
process
say,
can help us.
be self-led,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. Thank you, Libby. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Kelly is here. Brian is here. Mark is here. Some other folks. So glad that you're here. Thanks for watching, y'all. Please share this with those that may be affected, impacted, want some support and love. Please share this video. We'll have a recording up on our YouTube. So you can certainly share that as well. And I think that's all I got to say.
Oh, thank you, dear friend.
Thank you, friend. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.